there are issues here where we spend more time making sure that we dodge the bullet when it comes to having accountability for things that they do procedurally. And so I just had a bill that basically asked that we emphasize and elaborate on Black history and culture in two grades that are transitional grades, which would be fifth and eighth grade. Now, it's already in Tennessee code that we teach Black history and culture throughout K through 12, but I thought it'd be important for us to include more expansive coverage of Black history in fifth and eighth grades as it relates to where we are now in our country with such divisive happenings that are happening across the country, with the issues that we have with race relations and bias and things that we see even here in our own legislature. And so the bill that I brought to the Education Committee basically said, let's emphasize Black history and culture to include more than, as Senator Agberry would say, more than slavery and civil rights and Barack Obama. And so when we brought it to education, there was all this gymnastics about what the actual language said, which part of the language was part of what was already in code to make it more inclusive of all genders, races, ethnicities. And so they went back and forth about it. By the time the bill got to the floor, they had amended the bill so that it was ineffective and it actually didn't do anything. And it was not what we agreed to in the Education Committee. So then I went back and let me rewind. So when it got to the floor and they brought the amendment that was supposed to outline what happened in the Education Committee, the chairman got up to speak on the amendment, which normally they would defer to the sponsor for them to explain the amendment. But I knew it was something different when he started to explain it. And it was totally different than the amendment that we agreed to in education. And so I go to fix it to the way that it was in education. And the person that was actually the sponsor of that amendment at first says, no, I don't agree with that. I want it back the way that the chairman said. So basically, you made me go back to what the chairman was asking to do, but you said you didn't agree with that. And so when we got to the floor today, it was already decided they were going to try to send it back to Education Committee. And so I explained the bill. And of course, Senator Kelsey moved to send it back to Education Committee, which is actually now closed. And that's in concert with what happened in the House, where they told the representative before he even presented the bill in committee, they saw it on the calendar and told him it's going to be sent to summer study or you can take it off notice. He didn't even have a chance to even explain the bill before that decision was made. And like I told somebody earlier today, and I'm not afraid to say it, anytime you want a bill killed, the only thing you have to say is the word Black. And that's what happens. So, it's a shame that we are here, especially in this day and time in our legislature where we can't get legislation passed that actually moves us forward in areas that really, really, really need some attention. And we focus more on what it looks like in the press and what our party wants us to do in asserting and abusing majority power. And I just think, to focus more on getting the word out that our job is to advocate for all Tennesseans, not to advocate for those who fund our campaigns. When really this is already part of the code. And I specifically said that when I explained the amendment this morning, that we're only dealing with Title 49 that relates to Black history and culture is already included in the code. All we're trying to do is expand upon that code to emphasize and elaborate on Black history and culture in those two grades, much like we did Tennessee history a few years ago. And then on top of that, then there was, okay, we don't want to mandate anything for the locals, even though we mandate everything else for the locals. Then there was, we don't want to put anything more on the teachers than they can bear, even though we don't want to pay them what they should be paid to do this. So, there was reason after reason. So to get to the point, the reason is Black history. I mean, that's it. It really is a shame that you want to exclude a whole race from history. Basically, you want to act as if there is no need to expound upon the things that Black people have endured, but also contributed. We've gone through all we've gone through to get this bus removed. We've got people trying to change street names now because they're mad about that. How much of a war do we want to wage based on race, even though it is sort of a subliminal war, if you will. And I just don't think it sends the right message. I myself am in a body of 33 senators and 3 of us happen to be Black and we're women. And so, we have two isms to get over, even after the rest of the stuff. And so for me, it just sends a message that, the majority doesn't think it's important that our kids are educated on it, and they don't think that it's important enough to even, have discussion about. If you go to a sponsor in the House and say, hey, you can present this bill, we're not going to even talk about it. That lets me know that you don't even respect me enough to have a discussion about it. And outside of, the standard slavery and civil rights movement, we don't even talk about the Tulsa massacre. We don't talk about modern day contributions of Black people. We don't talk about Black inventors. There's a lot of stuff that's left out of history and is relegated to 1 month within the year as a good faith gesture, when really it is a really important and critical part of total history.